Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always.
What's up?
This is one of my favorite shows of the week. Buys and sells.
It is a fun show.
Even myself, I look up some buy and sell articles all the time. And I look them up. I read stuff.
And then you send a trade offer to everyone who's a buy
Yeah.
on every single article.
Yep. Hoping that they're right when most of the time they're not. Anyway, so yeah, we got week 3 buys and sells for you. Actually, what's interesting, I'm gonna bring up last show notes, and we're gonna talk about the buys and sells from last week really quick, see if anything hit or not. But anyway,
Okay.
Before we jump into our buys and sells for the week, be sure to check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like and comment down below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and the other podcasting platforms, please leave a review. Share this pod with your friends. Really exciting stuff. When was our last show on this? Was this last Friday?
Should be.
Okay.
I remember 2 of them. And
So-
one of them was a hit and one of them was a miss.
Our buys. I mean, well, this could be good buys long term too. It doesn't necessarily have to hit this week, but we had Darnell Mooney, Travis Etienne, Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton 19 points this week, do pretty good. Etienne, my God.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mooney could be a buy this week if you're selling your worst player.
True.
Worst bench player for Mooney.
One of the guys we had on the sells list is not on the sells list. So I think I want to make a swap-a-rooski here.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I gotta look at the show notes now.
I just changed it.
Was it somebody we missed?
No, somebody said we talked about that
yeah.
we didn't. So Cordero.
I still want to talk about the other guys in honorable mention though, just because I hate
We'll
them.
say it right now. Cordero Patterson was one of our sells last week. Rick wants to say something about Cordero Patterson, so feel free.
Okay. So he was on our list last week.
Yes, he was.
So we told you to sell him already. So you should have already done it. First of all, if you have Patterson on your team, what are you doing? All right, he might have worked out for you week 1.
If you have
25 points, whatever.
Quote of the season: if you have Patterson on your team, what are you doing?
But if you didn't sell him after week 1, sell him now, because I don't think they're going to get many chances left.
Right.
I think the 25 was a heck of a game. Although I will say Patterson didn't look horrible. That's all I'll say. He didn't look horrible. Didn't look good.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't look great.
I would not use the words good or great.
Yeah.
Maybe even okay is about as far as I'll go. But he split carries with the rookie.
Maybe mediocre.
Tyler Algier. So.
Mediocre is probably a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Right?
But go sell Cordell Patterson if he's still on your team.
Yeah. James Robinson, I think he remains a sell. He was on our sells last week. At some point this season, things are going to flip, and I don't know how much longer you can rely on James Robinson. And then right on cue, we said sell Waddle or Gabe Davis. I said Waddle. Rick said Gabe Davis. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a good timing.
Gabe Davis, Rick nailed on the head. Waddle was not
as much as I want to take the credit for that. He didn't play.
Yeah, that's true. For some reason, I thought he played and just didn't do anything.
No, he didn't play.
Okay. Well, anyway, those are our buys and sells from last week. I would still buy Cortland Sutton. I want to go buy Cortland Sutton. Love myself Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some buys and sells for this week, and see where they go. For our buys, our first buy is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, I know this is, you're like, I'm going to be able to make that trade. You're probably not. I'm not going to lie. But I will say, if there's any point in the season, obviously it was after week 1 that would have been better. But if there's any point in this season where you're going to be able to get Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's going to be right now. Because if he continues to perform at the level and at the pace that he has over the last 2 weeks and really over the last 9 to 10 games, he is going to be a league winner. He's going to be a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football. And he's going to be a guy that the team that drafted him or has him on their team right now is going to hold no matter what. And as the season goes along, the grip on Amon-Ra is going to become tighter and tighter and tighter. So right now, your best bet is to go to that person, see if they can get it, because like if you can get this guy in your team, I think it's team changing kind of stuff. So it's going to take
dare say league winner.
Yeah, dare say league winner. So if you drafted him, keep him. All the power to you. If you did not, I would try my hardest to go get him. In a trade this week. It's gonna be hard to get. It's gonna be hard to do, and you're gonna have to pay. But I think it's worth it.
So basically, like with Amon-Ra, is we feel like what he's valued at, even though it's high right now, is what he should be. You know, like he's gonna be that guy. So what is the price you would be willing to pay? You know, are you just giving up the whole bank, giving up your first round pick, your second round pick? Maybe your third round guy, fourth round. Where is the price?
I probably would say like a guy.
For example.
Okay. All right. Give me an example.
T. Higgins or Amon-Ra rest of the season. PPR.
Amon-Ra.
Yeah. I think I would too. And I think you could do that. You could send T. Higgins and get Amon-Ra in some leagues, depending on the Amon-Ra owner, but DJ Moore, that's an easy one. Amon-Ra. Trying to think of some examples.
Bro,
Michael Pittman.
Did you just accept an offer in our home league? I mean, in the tough league?
I just sent a trade. Did he accept it?
You traded James Robinson for Joe Burrow?
Well, our quarterback right now is Marcus Mariota. Side note to everybody. Do you not want to do that? You can decline it. I just sent that trade out, but you can
I think
cancel
you just
it.
Accepted it.
Oh, you did?
Oh, no, it's pending. Never mind. Go ahead. Continue with what you were saying about what we were talking
so
about.
So he did accept it.
He did
right?
not take it, no.
Oh.
I thought it was I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? I was so confused.
You can take that out. But
I don't care. I don't care. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's up to you. Anyway, I was trying to think of an example. So I said Michael Pittman. That's a hard one. Let me pull up the ECR. This is at wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb, your guy.
Oh, I would.
Somebody you drafted in the second round. CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra? Rest of the season.
I would 1,000% take Amon-Ra.
Yeah, me too. Mike Evans or Amon-Ra? Someone you drafted in the third round.
Amon-Ra.
Yep, me too. Mike Williams or Amon-Ra? That's a tough one.
I would take Amon-Ra.
Me too. So see, this is what we're talking about. But these guys you took in like the second or third round that we'd be willing to trade straight up for Amon-Ra at this point, because rest of the season PPR he's probably a top 10 guy, right?
Yeah, I would say he might even be top 8.
Right. So
yeah,
he's a buy, even though it's not a buy low. He's a buy high, but go buy him.
Yeah. All right, number 2, Saquon Barkley. Barkley had a great week 1, had the truthers from back in the day. They busted right out of the closet. It was like that. It was like that GIF of the Undertaker rising out of his coffin. That's the Saquon Barkley truthers. They're still very much alive, is what I found out the other day.
It's me.
Is Rick. Rick is a Saquon Barkley.
Even though I think I have one share.
He was in the
Saquon,
closet.
so
I mean, this is a guy that back in 2018
I was fully closeted. Yeah,
Saquon Barkley is the best running back in football. So
I still believe that. Pre-injury.
Oh my.
He was.
Oh my.
I'm not saying now.
Oh, all right. I was gonna say, oh boy.
But I do think he's up there.
You got Nick Chubb, pure runner, man.
As a pure runner, yeah, I would say Nick Chubb.
Dalvin Cook.
I would take Saquon.
No, that's not good.
I would take Saquon over Derrick Henry now at this point in their careers.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Derrick Henry's old, and Saquon Barkley's knees are old. So,
He's still 3 years younger, though.
Yeah. His knees aren't, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so Saquon Barkley is a buy. He had a big week 1. He showed what he could do. Rick will probably, rip his pants off when he watches that again. Just because how explosive Saquon Barkley was. But this week he only had 10 points, and so he in PPR, and he kind of regressed a little bit this week. Didn't have as good a performance. But if you are somebody that loves Saquon Barkley, thinks he's really good, this would be a good week to jump out and send an offer for Barkley, because it's not really like going to be a super buy low, but it's going to be one of those things where, like I told this to Rick before the show, a lot of people who've had Saquon Barkley in the past and who've drafted him, especially over the last 2 years, have been sorely, sorely disappointed, whether it's because of injury or because of performance with Saquon Barkley. And if Saquon Barkley truly is back, like the Undertaker GIF, then he will 1,000% be a great buy right now, because those Saquon Barkley owners are very, very timid about what's happening right now, and they would probably be willing to sell at a lower cost than what you would normally see.
Yeah, I mean, like any of these guys on these lists, it totally depends on who has a player. Because if it's one of, my people, it's the Saquon people, they're not trading Saquon for Jonathan Taylor. They're going to keep Saquon no matter what. But there are guys, and a good amount of them, who took Saquon because they needed a running back, right? And then they were very nervous about it. Week 1 happens, and they're like, okay, I feel good. And then week 2 happens, and they're like, they're a little bit lower. They're kind of back to where they were when they drafted him. And I think it's a good time to buy, because he's going to be productive. I know rest of the season, Fantasy Pros has him as the RB4. And honestly, I don't think that's crazy. Like I don't know if I'd have him ahead of Swift, but who they only have Swift at 6. I guess that's half PPR, so it's a little different. But he's right there. He's like 5 or 6 for me rest of the season. So
Whoa,
probably. I'm a Saquon guy.
Saquon, see the closet Saquon.
I'm fully out of the closet.
It's like
But dude, it's Saquon season. Look at his schedule. First of all, it's not hard whatsoever. I think he has one of the easiest schedules. Dallas isn't that bad. Chicago's not bad. Green Bay is kind of tough. Baltimore's not awful, as we've seen with Miami. Then you got Jacksonville and Seattle, followed by Houston and Detroit. Then you get Dallas again, Washington twice. Right. Philadelphia is a hard matchup, and then you get Minnesota and then the Colts. There's like 2 hard matchups whole season for Saquon.
Right.
He's got one of the easiest schedules out there, as long as he stays healthy, which is going to be an if for guys like him and McCaffrey. Yeah. But I think he's going to be very productive, because even this week, when he didn't really do much fantasy wise, he still had 24 touches. They don't give it to anyone else in the backfield.
Yeah.
So I would go out and buy Saquon. I'm willing to spend the big bucks to go get him, because he's an RB1, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. And third and finally, it's Kyle Pitts. This is a pure buy low.
This is the buy low for sure.
I'm really not sure. I'm not even sure this is a, for mentally. I mean, this is a
no.
This must be a buy low, but mentally, I'm not even sure what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. So I don't know if they Drake London looked fantastic. They clearly want to get him the ball. And the question is, is Kyle Pitts taking a back seat to Drake London, or, has he just not been targeted? I don't know what's going on with the Atlanta Falcons and their usage of Kyle Pitts, but what I do know is he was drafted, in the top 3 of last year's draft?
4th overall. So close.
4th overall. So, he's a freak. He's ridiculously talented. There's a reason why he's ranked number 3 in the rest of season rankings on Fantasy Pros. Like, Kyle Pitts is extremely good.
He's virtually a wide receiver, but he's 6'6", 250.
Right, exactly. He runs like a wide receiver, too. I mean, the guy's insane. So, at some point in the season, Kyle Pitts will become a good target for the Atlanta Falcons. I just don't know why it hasn't happened yet. With that being said, it will, and that time will come. But with tight ends, man, people like Rick and I and a league have, we're co-managing a team together in a league, and we have freaking Cole Kmet, and we just dropped him for Irv Smith Jr. And it was 2 weeks of us hyping up Cole Kmet for the second year in a row. Never again, Cole Kmet. You will not take my manhood.
I don't care if he actually starts doing good, or like, let's say he does bad all year, does good at the end of the season, and then next year gets hyped again. I'm not doing it again. I don't care. I don't care what the analytics say. I don't care about anything. I'm out on him.
Out. It does take 3 or 4 years for tight ends usually to kick into high gear, but
he's in year 3 though.
I know. But anyway, I'm already making excuses for me
for next year.
Cole Kmet next year.
Next offseason, yeah.
But no, Kyle Pitts will be fine, and I think this is a great buy. I even, there's situations where, a guy who I don't think has as much opportunity or as much of a chance to be a top 3 tight end in fantasy football by the name of like TJ Hawkinson, that you could reasonably say to the Kyle Pitts owner, like, hey, listen, this tight end's been better than your tight end. Do you want to do a swap ski?
Bro, even Hawk and like a decent bench piece.
Yep.
Do that in a heartbeat.
So,
and what you said when you started is basically exactly why I'm in on Kyle Pitts, because a lot of people don't know Arthur Smith's comments, the way they've used him. Nobody knows. And if you drafted Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round, which we highly recommended you did not,
you're disappointed.
If you did, you're definitely nervous right now. And I don't blame you. All right, I don't blame you. But I would take advantage of that so fast. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to in most leagues, because most of the leagues I'm in are dynasty, so it's a little bit of a different ballpark. But for redraft, yeah, absolutely. I will say I expected Drake London to take the back seat, and so far it has been Kyle Pitts to take the back seat for Drake London. But I don't think that's going to continue all season, especially with these recent comments from Arthur Smith. It actually makes me think that they're going to use Pitts more, because it was one of those things like, oh, you can't tell me what to do. And then they talk it over and they're like, yeah, well, we actually should use Pitts more. And then they start using Pitts more. Like,
yeah,
I could see that happening. And he's way too talented of a player to be getting how many targets did he get this week? 3.
Yeah.
He's not. I would be shocked if he gets 3 or less targets, unless he gets hurt in a game, right? But if he stays healthy in every game rest of the season, I don't think he gets 3 targets again. I think this week was the lowest he was going to do. Not to mention that his first 2 weeks he played Saints and Rams, 2 pretty solid defenses. He's got some really good matchups coming up. Seattle, Cleveland, Tampa's a tough one, San Francisco's a tough one, but then Cincinnati, Carolina, twice. Chicago, the Chargers are kind of tough. But Washington's an easy one. So he's got some easier matchups coming up, starting this week against Seattle, which is why you should buy him right now, because I think this week he's getting double-digit fantasy points, in my opinion.
All right, let's move to the sells that we have for this week. Number 1 is Hollywood Brown, who has been an utter disappointment in fantasy football. Yep. There was a real expectation for him to explode onto the scene, because there was virtually nobody to throw the ball to in Arizona. And he just hasn't lived up to that expectation. He has had 14 and 12 points to start the season in PPR leagues. This week he had
not awful.
It was just not awful. He did have 11 targets this past week, which is an improvement. Only caught 6 of those passes for 68 yards. So he has been better, and they've been getting him the ball. I mean, he has 17 targets, which, is an average of like 8 or 9 a game, which that's pretty good. So the big issue for Marquise Brown is that even if you want to hold him for a couple more weeks and get some more production out of him, you can. There is concern now with the situation with Marquise Brown. With DeAndre Hopkins coming back, because he's going to be back week 7 against New Orleans Saints. There's about 4 games left before that happens. And you also have Rondale Moore coming back. So
he might be back this week.
He might be back this week. So when these 2 guys get back, like Hollywood Brown in the first game had 6 targets. And if there's another game where he's not super involved like that again, that could decrease. And so I think 7 or 8 targets a game is probably where he's going to be. And right now he's had two really good games, two decent games, not really good games, but two decent games on the season. I would take advantage of those two games, sell him while you can, and try to get something in return for him.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason you probably drafted Hollywood, unless you're a Hollywood person, you're a big Marquise Brown guy, was probably for that production early on in the season. And, I didn't draft him in any leagues, but I was interested in him early on in the season. I think week 1, we had him. He was our start of the week at wide receiver.
Right.
I was in on him. I was like, the first 6 weeks he's going to do really good. I'm a little nervous when Hopkins comes back, and it's why I didn't draft him. But those first 6 weeks, he'll be great. But yes, he's getting targeted, but he's the wide receiver 27 right now in PPR through 2 weeks. And that's just a lot lower than what I had anticipated for him. And sure, he gets 14 points a week. He's a decent flex for the next couple of weeks. But what is he going to be when Hopkins comes back and Rondale Moore comes back if they use him? Like, it's not going to look great. It's going to be kind of gross, and it feels like you might have kind of wasted like a 4th or 5th round pick. Not necessarily wasted because he could be decent, but he's just the expectations for him. It doesn't seem like he's going to reach that. And I would get ahead of it now, sell him now to a team, because you can offer those 4 games without Hopkins to a team, and be like, look, you have him as the wide receiver 1 on the Cardinals until D-Hop comes back. And then he could still be solid when Hopkins comes back. So I think that's a good selling pitch. Get out ahead of it. Because it doesn't feel like you're going to get those monster weeks that you kind of expected when you drafted him for the beginning of the season. And this week he's got the Rams. I would assume Jalen Ramsey's going to match up with him. So just negatives all around for Hollywood.
Yeah. Number 2 on the sell list is Antonio Gibson. And I'm kind of, I'm more, this is probably the sell that I'm the most hesitant about.
Yeah.
Because there's a chance that the Washington Commanders actually end up utilizing Antonio Gibson even after B-Rob gets back.
Sure. Yeah.
And that they were just lying to us all, because Gibson's looked good. I mean, he's looked really good. So I do feel like this is one of those situations where I'm nervous that they're going to continue using him in the role that he has, but based on the preseason and early season talks of Brian Robinson being the starting running back before he inevitably got, not inevitably, that's a poor way of putting that, horribly got shot in the leg, he is, obviously missing time, but they were going to
He's back and practicing right now.
Oh my God. That's faster than I thought.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
But Gibson, coming into this situation, he was going to get run for at least 5 weeks. And we were going to see that. But in 2 or 3 weeks, that's going to come to an end. We're already starting to see him practice a little bit. So, for Antonio Gibson, if Brian Robinson comes in the first week from that, back from that injury, and he's the starting running back for this football team, and he actually has success, Gibson's dead. Like, he's not worth anything at that point. So I would sell him if I had the opportunity to sell him, just because I think at some point in the season there's going to be a crossroads. It's clear that they don't necessarily want him to be in that role as a featured running back. Now, there might be opportunity pass catching wise, and he's not going to die fantasy wise as soon as Brian Robinson comes back. So there's obviously that, but I think I want to get ahead of the Brian Robinson thing, because as soon as Robinson comes back and has a good game, or even a mediocre game, that's going to be a talking point for people who try to buy him. They're going to be like, Brian Robinson's still there, and you're not going to be able to get the same amount. So,
and the thing about Gibson is he's been okay. Like, the stats are it looked okay, but he scored a touchdown this week against Detroit. Without that touchdown, he would not have had a good game. He had 2 yards a carry. And his passing game work disappeared. McKissick played more of that McKissick role. He had 7 receptions. And this week, Gibson only had 2. So, and the thing is, when Brian Robinson comes back, even if Robinson isn't the starter, like some people thought, and what Robinson was going to probably get before the incident, it's just going to be kind of a mess because I think they are going to use all 3 running backs.
Mm-hmm.
So is Gibson going to be involved in the passing game? Sure, but you got Curtis Samuel, you got Jahan Dotson, you got Terry McLaurin. Is he going to be the lead back? Maybe, but Brian Robinson's going to get 5 to 10 carries. J.D. McKissic's going to get 5 carries in the passing game work. So it's going to just be kind of a gross situation in Washington, and it's something that I would just get out of. While it's probably at its highest point right now at Gibson, like you can get pretty good value for Antonio Gibson right now. And so because of that, I think you would want to sell high. If you want to hold on to him, fine. I think he could be okay rest of the season, but I don't think he's going to be low-end RB1 like he is now, or even really close, maybe like a low-end RB2.
Yeah, agreed. All right, third and final sell of this show. It's Clyde EdwardsPlant.
You were excited to say this one.
We swapped out Clyde for Cordero Patterson, but because we thought Patterson was on. I mean, Clyde was on the previous show, but
it was actually reversed.
It was actually reversed. I got ahead of this already. I sold Clyde in the league, but Clyde is a sell, and I was a little bit
RB5 on the season.
After the first game, I was really excited. I was existentially elated that Clyde got it. Late in the draft season, I was like, Clyde is an interesting player because he hasn't been good for 2 years. People had hyped him up. They thought he was going to be an RB1. For 2 years, he's just completely ripped the hearts and souls of everyone away.
Yep.
This year, I was like, no one's talking about Clyde, and I was really like, on Clyde. But then I realized something, and it's that the first thing I realized was in the preseason when Isaiah Pacheco was getting hyped. I was like, the fact that we're hyping Isaiah Pacheco, and the Chiefs even are using Isaiah Pacheco in the way that they are, and the way they have in the regular season, there is no Ronald Jones is dead, and there is no second running back for this football team outside of this Isaiah Pacheco. The other thing is that typically for quarterbacks that lose their wide receiver one, they target the running back position a lot more. And so because of those different variables, I was like, Clyde actually might be a good post-hype breakout type player who comes into this season, plays what we expected him to, breaks out. Rick just said he's top 5 on the season. Is that correct?
He's RB5 in PPR.
So he's got some great games to start the season. And, the breakout is here. There's a reason why I'm telling you to sell him. He has averaged 11 touches per game over the last 2 weeks. He's been efficient with the opportunities that he's seen. Scored some touchdowns, had some pass-catching work. The problem with Clyde is that if he continues to only get 11 touches a week, you are screwed. There will be a week where he doesn't score. Against Arizona, against Los Angeles, Arizona is obviously supposed to be a good run defense, but just hasn't been on the season. And the Chargers also are supposed to be a good run defense. So, what he's been doing has been good, right?
Been impressive, yeah.
But not only has he only had an average of 11 touches a game, but he's only averaging 42% snap percentage. So he hasn't even been the main back on the field for the majority of the game. So there's been some weird usage stuff going on with Clyde. That might change from a week-to-week basis. So I'm not out on Clyde for the season. But I think this is an opportunity to sell Clyde EdwardsPlant because there's opportunity. If this stays the same the whole season, there are going to be weeks where he scores 10 points, and he's not going to be as efficient as he has been.
If this stays the same all season, there could be weeks where he gets 5. Yeah.
Yep.
It is a very good time to sell Clyde, obviously as the RB5. And what's gross about this backfield is after week 1, I remember we had that talk because you had Clyde in our home league, and you were like, I don't know about Clyde rest of the season. And I was like, well, the snap percentage might have just been because they were blowing out Arizona. We really didn't know. But in week 2, it was the same thing. I know Clyde got hurt in the game, but I think he only missed 1 drive. So they were still planning on splitting the work in that game.
Yeah.
McKinnon had a 47% snap percentage. Pacheco only had a 9% snap percentage, but he was out there 23% of the time in week 1. So it feels like they want to get all 3 guys involved a little bit. And Clyde's not going to be that workhorse guy. I do think like rest of the season, I'd rather probably have Clyde over Antonio Gibson.
Yeah.
But Clyde's similar to Gibson in the sense that, he's an RB1 right now. He's a top 5 back, but I don't think he finishes as an RB1. He just can't with those touches. I know he's playing in a great offense, but if you're getting 10 to 12 touches a week, there's going to be some bad weeks. And he's got a tough little stretch next couple weeks, Colts and Bucks. So the Raiders is kind of easy, but then you got Buffalo and San Francisco. Yeah. So that's 3 to 4 out of the 5 games are hard matchups for him. So I don't think it's going to continue the way it's looked so far. Mm-hmm. The 22 against Arizona might look like his best game of the season up until the bye week comes up.
Okay. I will say with Clyde too, if he comes out of the stretch of games continuing to score a lot of fantasy points and then the opportunity increases, he switches from a buy low to, a sell or to a buy. Holy crap. That was so hard to say.
Yeah. Well, especially if he gets let's say the next 3 weeks, his snap percentage goes from 44 to 70 and he's at 70% snap percentage next 3 weeks, then I'm all in. But
yeah.
The usage so far has been very disgusting.
And I think
the fantasy points have come off big plays and touchdowns.
As a person who's listening to this podcast, you've probably heard target share and opportunity 1,007,000 times, not just from us, but from everyone else. And that's really the crux of the situations for fantasy football, where some guys like Devin Duvernay 2 weeks ago in week 1, he had a massive performance, 2 touchdowns, blew up the stat sheet, probably got picked up by several of your league mates like, this guy's going to blow up. And he only had 4 targets or something stupid like that. So it's I think when you look at Clyde, you have to look at opportunity share. You have to look at the touches and how many opportunities is he getting. Because if he's just being far more efficient than he actually is, and he continues with this workload of 11, 12 touches a game, there are going to be really bad weeks, and you're going to regret not selling him. And if you sell him now, you might be able to get a much better player for him. So this week definitely starts the tougher matchups, but we'll see what happens with Clyde.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.
There you go. Buys and sells for week 3 in the books. I'm ready for football this weekend. I'm ready to watch football. 1, 4 o'clock, Sunday night, Monday night, all fun stuff. Use this information as you will. Go make some trades. Good luck this weekend with your games, and see you later, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.